Welcome to another edition of Talk Your Exposure. This is season 2, episode 9. We have a very special one today. Unfortunately, my co-host cannot be here due to some work issues, but that's okay. We got to keep going, got to keep rolling. We are sitting here today with former pro basketball player, former Division I basketball player, Division I basketball coach, and just a great person in general, Jerome Robinson. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you taking the time.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on the show. We really appreciate it. I'm gonna get you off started right and with a very, very tough question. Very tough question. And usually we like to go with some quick hitters or called this or that with Devontae. Unfortunately, he's not here. But I'm gonna ask you from the jump. If you had a dinner party and you had 5 empty seats, dead or alive, who are you putting on that dinner table?
And they don't have to be hoopers?
They don't have to be hoopers. Anybody you want, dead or alive. I told you, tough one from the jump.
yeah. Dead or alive, man. MJ would have to be up there. I'd like to sit down with Martin Luther and Malcolm X.
Okay, it's a big one.
Shoot, I'd throw in Gandhi in there.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a big Patti LaBelle fan, so I'd like to just pick Patti LaBelle's brain. She's my favorite singer. So
okay,
that's it, man.
That's a star-studded lineup, brother. You can't go wrong with those 5. I think if you had that 5 together at a dinner party, I think that would be probably one of the most historical dinner parties that people have ever had, to be honest with you. So
there'll be a lot to talk about, man.
Most definitely, there definitely would be. I know that earlier in 2020, I know this is something that I saw via the group chat that we're both in right now. You were doing some, I think it was charity work or something. You were giving some food back to either the homeless or a home. Do you mind touching up on that a little bit?
Okay, yeah, no, that was so it was right when COVID really hit. We were living in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and that's when I was working for the University of New Mexico, Lobos, and my wife and I were just we were helping out the frontline workers. So it wasn't the homeless. So, one day we kept on going to our local grocery store, Albertsons, and it was like prime COVID. We didn't know much about it, but it was affecting so many people and the whole town was shut down. And going into the grocery store and just seeing those workers just interacting with people every day because they had to. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was their job, and we can avoid the grocery store as long as possible. They couldn't avoid human contact. So we kind of wanted to deliver something to them, as well as using a local pizza shop to do the delivery. And just my wife and I just want to give back to the store that, it was one of those local stores that, you communicate with them. They know who you are. You crack jokes with them when you go in. So they knew it was personable. And we just wanted to give something back to them to know that, there's people out there thinking about them, and we know what they're going through and how they interact with everybody, and they're putting themselves and their family at risk. Just it was a small appreciation. So we just kind of went out and bought a ton of pizzas, salads and all that stuff, and just kind of delivered it to the grocery store. And they were very appreciative.
And honestly, I'm sure they were, because, in the beginning of 2020, everything legitimately just went trickle. First it was Kobe, then it was COVID, then there was so many other things as well, even social justice, stuff like that. Just everything in general. I feel like 2020 was, just excuse my language, but just a complete shit show in my opinion. And it just wasn't right to be able to see something like that. First of all, kudos to you for you and your wife to go do that. And second of all, I think we need more people like that in the world right now.
Definitely, man. I think COVID, it exposed people's true being, you know what I mean? And like a lot of people got exposed, not only negatively, but positively, just who you are as a person, who you are inside, how can you overcome certain situations? What ideas did you have bundled up that now you can explore because you're at home, and you know what I mean? You have ideas flowing that you can actually pursue now. And but so many people are going through so many different struggles that if you're in in a position to help as a human race, I think it's our duty to help one another no matter what the situation is. If you're in a position to do that, because if you were not, you would love other people to do the same for you. So, you know, that's how I live. That's how I roll.
I agree. And obviously you're calling right now from Houston, Texas. You know, you guys just had a huge snowstorm, you know, a while back ago, and literally seemed like the entire state was going into fumbles. Was there anything that you try to do to kind of give back? Because you're from Canada originally, so you know about the snow.
Yeah.
Was there anything that any type of advice or anything that you're trying to give, you know, local civilians to help them with the snow?
Well, I mean, it was a little different than coming from back home, because even though we've felt these temperatures and these, you know, the snowfall on numerous occasions, when your power goes out, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're used to all that, but our power doesn't go out usually.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. You really go into survival mode, because we were out of power for about 38 hours. So the house dropped to 13 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow.
And it was rough, man. It was rough because you start to realize, man, this is serious, and you can't go to a hotel because the hotels didn't have power, or the ones that did were probably already booked up, but the streets weren't plowed. And everybody's driving on unplowed streets, you know, that turns into ice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then it rained, and then the temperature dropped again. So the roads were a disaster. So in terms of giving advice, there wasn't any. It was more like survival mode. It was like, how can I get my family out of this situation? You know,
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? It was ridiculous.
At that point in time, I'm sure, you know, you're probably thinking, I mean, I wouldn't say I want to go back to Canada right now, but generally you're probably like, man, being in Toronto probably wouldn't be that bad.
You move down here because of the weather. You know what I mean? Like, okay, it's tropical.
Right.
You know, you're not going to see any snow. And then the first 3-4 months you move here, and they get historical snowfall and historical temperatures. And it's definitely, I don't know if people believe in global warming or not, but that was definitely an eye-opener.
I think right now we're going through that right now. I want to transition right now because I know you coached at St. Bonaventure, which we're going to touch up on a little bit later. I actually went to the junior college. I wasn't too far away from St. Bonaventure. I went to Olean, Jamestown Community College in Olean.
Yeah, right down the street.
Right down the street. Right around the corner. Hey, I'm not gonna lie. I have some very good stories from Bonaventure, but I'm not gonna say on air right now. But how do you feel about the Bonaventure winning the A10 championship?
Man, I'm so happy for them, because obviously the majority of the same people are still there in the athletic department that I've known. You know, Mark Schmidt, Steve Curran, you know, the assistant coach. You know, I have so much respect for them. Mark Smith, I think he's probably top 10 Division I coaches in the country. Wow. And I'll put that argument up against anyone. You know, his game management, his player development, you know, his X's and O's, how he runs a program. I mean, it's bar none. So to see him do that with the budget that they have to work with, and you know, you lived in Olean, so you know just recruiting part of it is difficult because it doesn't have the hoopla and the splash and a ton of things to do like a big city, or you're not even close to really a big city, hour and a half from Buffalo. So for him to do what he does night in, night out, and his teams consistently get better and better, and they're always right there at the end. And it's crazy. It's crazy. So I'm happy, but I mean, to win the regular season and the tournament, I don't think he's ever done that. I don't think Bonaventure has ever done that. So that he's showing that he's taking it to another level.
Hey man, honestly, and the time that I was there too was when Andrew Nicholson was there as well.
Yeah.
So I watched a couple of games and I was able to you know, see Andrew and whatnot. Did you coach him as well, or was that?
No, I missed him by, I want to say 2 years. I believe I missed. I was at Eastern Michigan when he was there.
Okay. So yeah, so when I was there, it was like the team that you see, they're fast paced up and down, but in the half court set, they just know how to play, insert to the post, kick around, set screens off way. It was beautiful basketball. Just like you said, they couldn't get the proper recruitment that because of where they were.
Yeah. His X's and O's game, he has a package of. I'm telling you, I'm looking at some of the sets right here. I got his playbook right here. But
wow,
it's. I mean, you're probably at the end of the season, you probably got about 150 sets that the guys know. So, people like to talk about, oh, this kid can't learn this kid can't learn that. They can learn it. They can learn it. But it's one of those deals where you see his teams really, really progress when they're juniors and seniors. Now they had those 3 years to learn the package. And so when he has an older bunch that know all of his sets, that's when they can be really special.
Hey man, honestly, I'm glad you touched up on that, because I'm going to touch up on that a little bit later with the whole sets and whatnot. How coaches and universities at the Division I level really have a lot of playbooks. Because I try to tell kids all the time, I'm like, listen, when you guys think that my plays are hard with like 10 or 15 sets, wait till you guys get to university and they give you, like you said, 150 different plays. Yeah. And it's remarkable that a lot of kids and a lot of athletes that go Division I, they learn all that stuff in such a not that long of a time. If you really think about it, it's like everything's kind of thrown at you one by one. You got to study that whenever you got to study that. Yeah. But I do want to touch up with you though about just New York right now in general, the state of New York in general right now about COVID. I feel like COVID has really helped them a lot this year with St. Bonaventure won the championship. Buffalo Bills had a very good, successful season. The New York Knicks right now are in the playoffs. We're not going to talk about Brooklyn because Brooklyn has a whole bunch of cheat codes right now. But just those three that haven't typically done as well as they could be or should be in recent years, COVID has really helped them with that. Do you kind of agree with that, or what do you think has been their success?
Well, for the Bills, I think it was a steady progression. With the new management and then the new QB, I think it was a steady progression of them just putting the right pieces together. And then COVID just happened to land on the same time as I think they were going to be successful, because I think they were due. They were due. And, for Bonaventure, they missed a lot of games. So when you look at their record, other teams are like 25-4 and whatever the case may be. You look at their wins, it's like 15 and whatever it is. You know what I mean? 15-4, 15-5. Mm-hmm. So I actually think COVID hurt them in terms of they weren't able to play the same amount of games. But I think he's such a good coach that he was able to speed up that process and, get his players playing at an elite level a lot faster than he normally would have. Mm-hmm. And I'm just happy for the Knicks. I mean, the Knicks, again, too, they have brand new management all over. Mm-hmm. Worldwide West joined. They brought Kenny Payne over from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. They got a whole new front office management overhaul. You know mm-hmm. what I mean? Mm-hmm. New ideas. Not the same old ideas. And I think that could just change the culture in itself. I feel like a lot of people wrote RJ off, because he wasn't having the rookie year that some probably expected, like Morant was and Zion. But everybody has a different way of progression mm-hmm. and growing in basketball. And he didn't get to his position by accident.
You're right.
Was he third? I think third pick.
He was third pick.
They didn't get that wrong, but it's not only is he in the mix, so that's a whole nother pressure of no team is dealing with pressure like that, or no player. But he's young. You know what I mean? Now you're thinking it's the best on planet Earth, mm-hmm. and it takes a while. And now you're seeing, and he's a worker, and he's so confident that you knew he's gonna turn it around at some point. You just didn't know when it was. I'm just glad it was sooner than later.
The Knicks actually have, I know this is a very weird stat. I don't know why I looked it up, but the Knicks actually have the most left-handed starters right now in the NBA. I don't know why I looked it up, but anyways.
That's unusual, man. I mean, you know, what is it, 25% lefties in the NBA or something like that?
I don't actually know that stat, but I don't know. One day I was randomly just looking it up, and I looked at the most left-handed starting. I don't know why, but I looked at the most left-handed starting lineup in the NBA right now. It's the New York Knicks. They have two.
That'll be interesting. That'll drive Coach Smart berserk because he sends everybody left.
You're talking about on Carlton.
Yes.
Hey, Carlton is a rude team. They're anyway, that's a whole nother story. It's a whole nother story. I know you're an old school guy, changing topics right now from New York. I know you're an old school guy. LeBron, Kobe, MJ. What 1, 2, 3? Who you got?
MJ, Kobe, LeBron, 3.
Okay. So
I have to.
So is it one of those where you don't really – do you rate LeBron's game?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And I think a lot of people, you lose yourself in how really good he is and how amazing of a career he's had because he does it so often. It's almost like people get complacent or bored with how great of a player he is. I just think when you grow up idolizing somebody, they're on a pedestal. And despite when they do the comparisons of, well, he has this, he did that, I don't care. Like, he was my idol. What he did and how he did it against the guys he did it against and how consistent he was, it's hard to really take him off of my best of all time. And then Kobe was emulated him. I mean, he was right there with him. The things Kobe was able to do in 5 championships and the scoring titles and just willing his team to win and how they approached the game and how they wanted perfection from practices and from their teammates. And they wanted, you know, championship effort all the time. And some people may call them a-holes and jerks. And no, that they just ultimate winners, that they don't know nothing else.
Yep.
They don't know anything else. And that, I mean, that's why I have those two above LeBron. But I mean, LeBron could very well go down as the best ever, and you could make an argument for that. And I wouldn't, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be opposed to people who think he's the best. You know what I mean? I hear what you're saying.
It's everybody's opinion. I'm not a LeBron fan at all. I don't like LeBron at all. I agree with you. I think it's Michael, Kobe, LeBron. I actually have a painting right behind me right there. It's Kobe Bryant. Yeah. So I'm not a LeBron fan at all. I think he's a whiner and so many other things as well. He's great on the court and he's great like off the court as well as a person. But I just think that he just gets too many bailouts, too many call outs, that the same stuff that I don't know if Jordan got. I don't know if Jordan got the same way. So
it's a different time. It's a different way of playing. It's a different, you know, level of the technicals that they give out, you know, tier 1, tier 2s, and where, you know, Jordan wasn't getting those and Kobe wasn't really getting those until the later end of his career. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a different style of play. You're able to get away with a lot more, in my opinion. But the talent level now is like so high. I mean, the things that these guys are able to do with the basketball, the range that they're able to shoot from on a consistent basis, ball handling skills, the finishing. I think basketball is in a really, really good place in terms of like fanfare and fan watching. It's in a good place. But I'm such an old school guy that I really miss watching, you know, the old school players play.
Fair enough. I want to transition now to your university career. Before we touch up on your career at Bradley, I just want to know who else was in the running for you.
Man, you know, when I was coming out my junior year, I had Minnesota on me, Georgetown,
wow.
USC.
Georgetown, wow.
Yeah. Providence. And then I had a lot of mid-majors, a ton of mid-majors where it came to Iona, a lot of teams in the Valley, Wichita State. He's not in the Valley anymore. They're in, I don't know, Conference USA or whatever. But there was a lot of schools, man. And then I broke my tibia.
Oh.
I broke my leg. And when I broke my leg in a pep rally in high school, a lot of letters stopped coming in.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a lot of letters stopped coming in. And there was only a few that stuck around. Cleveland State, Toledo, Bradley. Mm-hmm. A lot of mid-majors stuck around. A lot of high majors. I was a dime a dozen, 6'3", athletic guy. They could find that anywhere. They started falling off. You didn't hear a lot. Or they'll check in every once in a while, but it wasn't as heavy as it was prior to the broken leg. Mm-hmm. And Bradley was one of the schools that kind of stayed calling, asked about the injury, asked how I was doing. And then when I went on campus, my coach, he's the assistant at Oklahoma now, he was the head coach of the USA university team. So he had them on campus while I was on my visit. Earl Boykins and a bunch of those guys were on campus, and I was watching them practice, and I was like, oh, this is a cool atmosphere. It was a small school, 6,000 students. And when I played with them, open gym, I was like, man, I could play with these guys. Mm-hmm. I could get minutes here. He's like, they're good, they're talented, but, I could come in and play. So that's why, on top of the coaches, Coach Donahue, who recruited me, he's out the game now. He works for Eli, a pharmaceutical company out of Indianapolis. Besides him, it was like the head coach, Jim Moliner, him coaching the U.S. team and his connections, as well as me believing I was able to come in and play right away. It didn't really happen when I got there, but, the cocky mentality to going in, like, it ain't open gym, when you get on campus.
You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that. I wanted to touch up a little bit about being, back in the era that you were playing basketball in, there was no mixtapes. There was no real recording of the game. There's no stuff like that. I mean, there probably was, but not like how it is today. Yeah. What was it like for you being one of those guys, one of those very small few Canadians to go Division I from a Canadian high school?
It was honestly really cool because, I mean, I'm good friends with Mike Schmidt, played at Nike. And, I mean, he was phenomenal. And he was a better player than I was. It wasn't even close. And we used to go to each other's house and look at the letters, you know what I mean? And he was getting Syracuse and Texas. And, like, his letters were like, I didn't even want to look at them no more, the stuff he was getting. But it was only between me, him, Wayne Smith, Damian Reed, Dave Thomas.
Wow.
It was a handful of, I know I'm missing a couple names.
Phil Dixon.
Well, Phil is way older than us.
Okay. I know.
The guys that I was playing, my age group.
Was Skinny your age group?
Yes. Well, he's like a year or two older, but yeah, that's still same age.
Okay.
So Skinny, Jamal. There was only a handful of guys really getting it. And I remember Simeon Mars got me and Schmidt invited to ABCD camp. At the time, it was a top camp, Adidas camp in the country run by Sonny Vaccaro. And we got invited to that. And we were the only Canadians there. And we got there, and I mean, there was Lamar Odom was there in high school, and Tracy McGrady, and there was so many guys, and I was like, holy cow, these guys are talented. Like, it was a whole different ballgame of who I was used to playing against, and
right.
It was definitely a eye-opening for me to see the talent level and how there's levels to this stuff. But when I left that camp and got back home, that's when all the letters started coming.
Mm-hmm.
That's when all the letters started coming. And then, you had Beer from Islington, and, you had who else was there? there's other AAU coaches out there that were like helping us get to these tournaments to get seen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and those guys, you know, you have to hang your hat up to those guys and give respect where it's due, because if it wasn't for a lot of those guys giving us that exposure, putting us in the forefront, in front of the Americans and in the American tournaments, some of us probably wouldn't be or got the you know, the recognition that we got if it wasn't for a lot of those guys.
And that's
Bob
even how
Marsh is another name. Bob Marsh, we played. He coached Unity, and
okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with Bob Marsh.
Not too
He was
familiar.
probably out the game when you were coming up, and he was able to put us in front of all these guys and all these tournaments, man, and help us along.
Right. Like for me, when I was growing up, like I mentioned, I knew Phil Dixon. He trained me. I was with Elite Camps and Stephanie and Rudy and all those people.
Yeah.
I was with, or I'm talked a lot to Bob Mado. That's pretty much who. Tony McIntyre, Mike George.
Yeah.
You know, people like that. I wasn't really like, I didn't know what I knew when I was young. What I know now, I didn't really know when I was younger. So like all the AU circuits, all those camps, the ABCD camp that you mentioned, when I was 14, 15, 16 years old, the best thing for me was OBA basketball and playing like BDP or MDP tournaments. Right. So I didn't know too much. It wasn't until my grade 12 year when I was actually introduced to, you know, these type of leagues, these type of schools, these type of camp, these type of stuff like that. So I didn't really know all that stuff, but you know, I'm glad that we have veterans and people that can kind of pass down information and knowledge like yourself to people, you know, from those times as well, that say, hey, you know what, I didn't have what you guys have now. So take advantage of all the film that's around you right now, and take advantage of the mics up, and take advantage of all these things that you're able to help, that can help you get to the next level, because there's so much of it now.
Yeah. And the scary part about it, I mean, it could be a good thing as well, but you know, there's so many eyes on the guys now, you know, because everything's being recorded, and whenever you play a game, someone's going to see it, you know what I mean? Yep. And you never know what film someone's going to click on. Yep. You know, it could be that poor performance, or it could be that where you got into an argument, or you threw down the towel, or you didn't dap people on the way to the bench, or so those are the little things when I'm recruiting that I tell kids, like, you don't know what we're looking for, and you don't know what we're watching. It's not all about, does this guy get a ton of buckets? You know what I mean? It's not all about that. It's the little things. It's your teammate on the ground. Are you running over? Are you one of the first to go and pick him up? You know, how do you interact with your coach when he subs you, or when he tells you to do something, or when he's yelling at you? We're watching all of those body language and those little things that a lot of kids don't really know we're looking at. And that could make or break a scholarship, you know, especially if you're neck and neck with another kid who's doing those things that we like.
Exactly.
So you just never know who's watching you, man. So you always got to be on your P's and Q's. And another thing I tell kids is, whatever you do well, make sure when you step on the court, we see it. You know what I mean? So if you're supposed to be an elite rebounder, don't come out the game with like 4 rebounds and you know we're there and you're trying to score. No, we're hearing that you're an elite rebounder. Show us you're an elite rebounder. You know, if you're a 3-point shooter, show us that you got a good looking stroke. And even if you're missing and you're off, coaches can tell, yeah, he's off today, but man, that stroke is pretty. And oh, it's rattling in and out. You know what I mean? Taking good shots. You know, so it's little things. Whatever you say you're good at, or you think you're good at, or people are selling you as, make sure that when we leave the court, we know. If you're a jumper, I need to leave the court like, man, that boy's an athlete. Did you see that? You know what I mean? I need to see whatever they say you're good at. Please show us.
Fair enough. And I'm really glad you touched up on that. So every kid that's watching this, I'm glad they heard it from a Division I coach themselves, because sometimes my voice goes under. You know, they don't believe me all the time. You're my coach, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. But anyways, I do want to get back to Bradley for a second. I want to ask you, what was your toughest moment about being at Bradley?
Toughest moment, to be honest with you, man, the toughest, I don't think in high school I was prepared for the pressure. of Division I basketball. I went to a school that was a mid-major school, but it averaged 10,000 fans a game.
Oh, wow.
And it was packed. And the demands of not only the coach and his pressure to win ball games because he's feeding his family, he's going to get fired, but just the pressure of you performing because you're using a scholarship. You're getting $25,000 a year scholarship. They could have gave it to someone else. You got to produce. You got to put some output. And just I remember my first game I subbed in, and he called my name, and I was like, man, I acted like I didn't even hear him. And then he yelled it again, and I jumped. I was like, okay. And this is me where, I was a tough guy coming up, and I play against anybody, and I wanted all the smoke. And then I got out there, and I was like, man, I was never prepared for this atmosphere and the screaming and I never played in front of anything like that before.
Right.
Now I live in Texas, and you go to these high schools in Texas, and all these high schools are gigantic and they're packed in a gym. And I'm recruiting in Texas, and I'm like, holy cow, these kids play in front of this stuff. So they were already trained in that atmosphere and that yelling and that the also was the only time where I played in front of so many people. So I think just the pressure of the demand of performing and how many people are out there, just all eyes on you, and the TV cameras, it's televised. And I wasn't ready for that part of the game. Obviously you have the part of missing your family and homesick. That plays into part when you're not playing well or you're not playing.
For
you
sure.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
you're hard practice, and you're getting beat up in practice, and things are not going. Somebody's killing you in practice. You're getting yelled at. You got suicides, and you're like, man, I'm 10-hour drive away from home. You're calling home, and your parents are like, yo, suck it up. Like, what are you talking about?
Pretty much.
This is what you wanted.
What was your most humbling moment, whether it's at a practice? I know you just mentioned, you said you weren't fully ready, or you didn't, or the mental aspect of it wasn't fully there. But I just want to know, what was your most humbling moment, whether it was in a film session, whether it was in a game practice, whether it was just on campus? What was your most humbling university moment?
Man, I had a guy at Creighton. I'm blocking his name now. Rodney Buford.
Oh, okay.
Rodney Buford. He played in the league for a little bit.
Yep.
So I was one of the better defenders on the team, and my matchup was Rodney Buford at Creighton. And he went off, and he was in a zone, and he ended up with, I want to say, 42 points. But he didn't have all 40 on me. He had about a good solid 20 on me.
I believe that.
Still a lot. And then I got moved. Somebody else guarded him, gave him a quick 10, gave somebody else a quick 10. So we shared, and I just got the half of it. You know what I mean? And we got into film session that night at the hotel. And it was like
that same night?
That same night.
Your coach wasted no time.
No time. We had film session that night, and it was the Jerome Robinson show, man. And I was there. I want to say I was a sophomore. Kyle Korver wasn't on the team yet, so I think I was a sophomore. And he just let into me. And it's like I got all 40. And I started him on the run, and I got him in the zone. And he's going to send me a postcard from the NBA saying, thank you, Jerome, and this and that, and rewinding things and just constantly showing clips over and over again. And I was just like, man, no one else was part of the film session. It was all on me. I was just like, oh, wow. These guys didn't even have to be in the room. You could have just called me in and sat me down and went on. So that was probably the most humbling moment where I was just like, man, I wanted to leave. I wanted to transfer. But transfer wasn't even a big thing back then. But I just wanted to go back home. Why am I going back to Toronto? So, yeah.
And we're going to get back to how that all transitioned for you in a little bit. But your senior year, you had a great year. You had a great year just in terms of, personal accolades, in terms of you won Defensive Player of the Year. You were named first team All Missouri Valley Conference. What made you lock in? We know obviously earlier you mentioned that Michael Jordan was your favorite basketball player, especially defense was a big thing for him. Did you want to try to not accumulate, but did you want to try to get your game around him? Did you want to try to make your game around him? Or was it one of those where just like, you know what? I don't want anybody to score on me. No one's going to score on me. And was it that tough-minded that you went in with from Toronto?
Man, it definitely had nothing to do with MJ. And even though he was my favorite player, like growing up, Victor Page was my favorite college player from Georgetown.
Okay.
You know, I was a Georgetown fan, and when they sent me that letter, those letters, I was like, man, this is where I want to go. And Victor Page was like my favorite player. And then you had the Michigan Fab Five were the two teams that I would always want to watch. But what really turned the corner, and I've told this story a bunch of times, was being on the Canadian national team my junior year going into my senior year. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we would have two-a-days. Jay Triano would have two-a-days, and we was in basically training camp. And, you know, one time Nash asked me, Rome, you want to stay back and shoot? And I don't know if you even remember this story. Probably does it with everyone. And, you know, we just had like a 2.5 hour practice. And I knew we had another session because we were at Humber College at the time. I knew we had another session coming up that evening. And I deep down, I didn't want to shoot. I wanted to go back, eat, rest, but you're not going to say no to Nash. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I said, yeah, let's shoot. And I mean, I think we probably did like 300 makes, threes, off the dribble, little stuff like that. And we got a full workout after our practice.
Oh, wow.
And then it kind of just became a ritual, and he would invite other guys, and we just kind of, it just never got old. And then, you know, he would start running after practice and go a couple miles, and, you know, it's not crazy speed, just jog a couple miles. And it was like, this is what a pro looks like. This is what a pro does. Like, you trying to make the league, you're trying to be a professional, but you're not even doing half of what professionals do. Mm-hmm. You know, this is what the pros do. And that summer, you would do it every day or every other day with this guy. And it started to become a habit. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't hard anymore because, you know, your muscle memory, it just becomes, you know, ritual. And then when I got back to school, I knew that there was no way anybody in conference put in the work. I couldn't fathom it because no one played for Team USA. Mm-hmm. You know, they probably did whatever leagues they were playing in, but there was nobody that was working with Nash or the other pros on the team. There was nobody that put in the work and the jumpers and all that. And I kind of came to a point where it's either now or never, man. You're averaging 6 points here, 7 points the next year. Like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? And I remember the first game out, you know, first I was killing practice throughout the whole preseason. I was just like, okay. And from then I got a lot of confidence. Like, okay, I've leapfrogged a lot of my teammates my senior year. And my first game was against USC. And I remember USC recruiting me. And then they fell off when I broke my leg.
So that was personal for you. It was personal for you.
And Mike Bibby's dad was the coach. And I dropped 32 on him. Had 7.
Let him know. You said you should have never pulled back that recruitment offer. You should have never pulled it back.
And they had a really good team. I mean, I think they went to the Elite Eight that spring. They went to the Elite Eight that year. They had Scalabrini, Trepanier, Clancy. They had a squad. Right. And after the game, he came up to me. He said that same thing, like, man, if we knew you were going to turn on like this, we would have kept recruiting you. But that was personal. But from that game, it kind of set the tone for the season.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, you know, you killed that team. You had 32 against them and stuff like that. But sometimes in life, we always think and say, you know what, maybe something happened for a reason. It's always best that we went here instead of going there. You know, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have happened if you were at USC as well, but you got inducted into the Hall of Fame at Bradley. What was that moment like for you? And do you think that, you know, being at Bradley was the best opportunity for you?
Yeah, when I got the phone call, it was funny because we were playing Bradley. The Lobos were playing Bradley because we had a little tournament going on, Missouri Valley versus the Mountain West. It was going on for probably 6-7 years, maybe longer. Mm-hmm. And every year you'll play a new Missouri Valley will play a different Mountain West team, and we just happened to be playing my alma mater. And I've been nominated to get inducted a few years prior and just never got the nod. Mm-hmm. And I think they wanted me to be in that year, but they wanted to do it differently because we were playing Bradley, that I didn't get inducted with the regular class. Mm-hmm. I got inducted when we played them. But just to get the phone call, man, it's definitely humbling. You know what I mean? Because after getting the nominations, there went a few years where I never heard anything anymore. So I was like, dang, you know, it might not happen. So I kind of forgot about it. And then, you know, to get that phone call from Bob Parker, he was there when I was there, and I saw the number. So because I have his cell, and I was like, man, you know, what does he want? You know, because usually he went to New Mexico State. So we're always, you know, talking smack between the Lobos and New Mexico State. So I thought it might have been one of those phone calls. And when he told me, I was just like, man, it's definitely humbling, especially now that my kids were older and they were able to appreciate it. I think it worked out even better because they understood, like, you know, dad's a Hall of Famer at a Division I school. You know, not a lot of guys from Toronto could say that, you know, especially guys my age or a little old or a little younger than me, you know.
Right. And now anytime that your kids want to go to that school, they're going to see your name there and be like, you see that? Now you listen to me.
It's pretty cool. To answer your second question, the way I played my senior year, if I played like that throughout, you know, with that intensity and that work ethic, I could have played at a lot of bigger schools. But it probably took those Bradley years to get to that level. You know what I mean? And a lot of those big Power 5 schools probably wouldn't have had the patience that Bradley had, and they would have recruited over me because there's no time at that level, man. They're recruiting top 100 kids, top 150s every year. So if you're not bringing it, there's not a lot of development time and patience at a lot of those levels. You know, it's now or never. But I tell kids as I'm recruiting that, you know, when you go somewhere, and it doesn't apply to everybody, especially some of the big time players like a Jamal Murray or Shea Alexander, one of those top guys.
Yeah.
But definitely to me, it's like a mid-major plus thing. If you want to pick a school where you can try to be all freshman team. Can you be all freshman team in that conference or in that school, or have a chance to be? That's probably the right level for you. If you have no shot at doing it, probably too high. Unless you're a one and done type of kid. Like I said, I'm excluding those type of kids from this conversation. Second year, you have a chance to be all conference. You know what I mean? Maybe third team. Third year, you're fighting for all conference awards. Second, you know what I mean? Defensive player of the year, all defensive team. By your senior year, if you can't get those awards, or you're not getting nominated for those awards, or you're not even in conversations, probably too high. And I think, and I'm using my experiences plus my experiences as coaching, I think that formula works, man. If you're not able to get on some of those teams as you kind of climb up the ranks, it's probably too high. Now, some people may disagree, and everybody has their own theories, and that's just, you know, that's my opinion. And
ain't nothing wrong with your opinion, man. It's your opinion, you know. It's your opinion. But I do want to transition out to your pro basketball career. You played in France, Belgium, and Australia, I believe. Austria. Did you know anything going in there? Did you study any of the languages? Did you study any of the lingo? Like, what was it like for you before you even got to play basketball? Before, like, anything?
Man, it was crazy because I had to finish my degree off, so I wasn't able to go right when I was hot, right when I finished college, and I had a solid senior year. I had to go back a semester and do my student teaching. I was pushing it off because I had no time to do the student teaching, and now I had the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a semester off and did my student teaching off campus at a middle school. So when I was ready to come out, this was right around January, December time. Teams with rosters were already made. People were wondering why I sat out. What's the problem? Was there issues? And the funny thing is, Nick Nurse reached out to me.
Oh, wow.
And said, come on my squad. And Nick Nurse was coaching Brighton Bears at the time.
Okay.
So I went over to Brighton. I went over to Brighton in England and probably spent 2 months with Nick Nurse. And then there was issues with me being able to play because they had too many North Americans on the team. One guy he thought was going to leave decided to stay. Long story short, all I did was just practice with them the entire time. So we just practiced and sat on the bench. So it was brutal. But I've known Nick Nurse for forever. To see his ascension is actually amazing, coming from Brighton Bears and how we were rolling back then. To see him as the Raptor head coach is pretty neat. But then the following year, I reached out to Jay Triano and said, like, I need to get on a team. I can't go another year without being. So he talked to Gordy Herbert, who was our assistant on the national team, and Gordy had connections in Austria because Gordy, I believe, coached in the league prior to me getting there. And he made a phone call and said to the Obovart Gunners and said, you need to take this kid. Like, believe me, it's not going to be a mistake, yada, yada. And they brought me in, and I think I averaged like 26 a game. And then it just kind of
killing
off from there.
Killing.
Yeah, but I had people to help me out throughout. I didn't do this all myself, man. I mean, Jay Triano helped me out. Nick Nurse helped me stay relevant in terms of my basketball skill level and the work ethic and practice and helping me get my first acclimation to overseas and how different it was. Then you had Gordy help me get on the roster. Jay Triano even helped me with the motion capture for NBA Live, I think 2001.
Oh, wow.
Jay Triano hit up Sean O'Brien, I believe his name is, who worked at EA Sports. And they helped me do the motion capture there. So he's like, do this while you're waiting. It's good money. So I didn't do this all myself, man. I mean, I had a lot of people that helped me along the way.
You got lucky. You're one of the fortunate ones, man, because not many people can say that they had Jay Triano and Nick Nurse, even Steve Nash in his corner as well. So you got very lucky with that one, man. But I do want to ask you, though, when you were in Austria, you earned all league honors and you were also named Defensive Player of the Year twice. So this isn't the first time for you to get Defensive Player of the Year, because obviously that was another accolade that you had from university. What does defense really mean to you? Because I obviously by these awards, you don't like when people score on you. You take it very personally. But what does it mean to you, though, to really lock up on someone and get in their face and just take that ball from them?
Man, that's a tough question because how I got it, I wasn't like a big stealer. I wasn't getting a ton of steals. You know what I mean? I was more the guy that was stopping you from getting your average. If you're coming in scoring 20 a game, you're leaving with 12, 13, 14 a game. You know what I mean? So it's just or every shot that you make is going to be the hardest make that you've ever made. That was my thing. And just making it just hell and difficult to handle the ball, my thing is just to make the ball handlers so uncomfortable and out of your comfort zone. So I watch a lot of film on guys so I can study you and I can understand how you play, where you like the ball, your tendencies, how you dribble. Can I count your dribbles? Can I count those timings where I can kind of get a hand on it? How loose are you with your passes? Can I get deflections on it? How do you like to come off ball screens? Can I slip those? Can I meet? You know what I mean? picking you a path forward, but you have to be conditioned, and you have to be conditioned to not only lock up or try to lock up the best player on the opposing team, but you also have to score. So you have to, I was averaging 26, but I was still locking guys up. But you have to be conditioned to do that. And I always wanted to be a two-way player. I want to be a two-way player and try to score on all three levels. And that's what I did. I wanted to guard the best guys. And when you do that early, it becomes habit. And you know what I mean? When you don't do it early, you're nervous of guarding certain guys because they're so good. And I've guarded a lot of really good players where it had me nervous. So when you're nervous, you're locked in a little more because you don't want to get embarrassed. You don't want to get embarrassed. There's guys out there that I had a guard. Rasheed Brokenberry went to Temple, and he was so good. He was averaging like 28. I was averaging 26. He was averaging 28. And his buckets were just way more prettier than mine, like way more skilled. And, going up against him, it's like, man. And he played in the A-10, the Temple, and he was a really good player for them. And I remember just the whole night just not wanting to get embarrassed. It's not. I can't get embarrassed. I can't get embarrassed. I can't. So you're locked in even more. So I'm watching film just like, man.
You don't want to have another Rodney Buford night.
Yeah, exactly. I can't have one of those nights, and these guys are capable of doing it. So you have to lock in, man. You have to lock in, and you have to embrace it and want it. And it has to be personal when they score on you. And it's like, okay, you're not scoring more than 2 points on me if you get. Okay, that's a good basket. You're not scoring again. Damn. You're not scoring again. Or when you sub out the game and your teammates let him run off 3 straight, it really goes on you. So you're snapping on your teammate like, lock that dude up, or coach, put me back in. Because all those kind of guys need is that 1, 2, 3 buckets in a row. Like, okay, now you're going back and you're guarding him in a zone. And now it's difficult to get them out of it because some of those guys are really prolific scorers.
For me, I never had any defensive accolades like you have, but I take defense very personally. I'm that guy that might get dunked on a couple of times because I like to take charges. I'm that guy that, will sacrifice my body in order to be able to get that steal, get in the passing lane properly, communicate the entire time. I get excited to play defense. I don't know why, but I get excited to play defense. Typically, I feel like defense is such a lost art in today's game. And to be able to hear that you have taken on, I call it the Jordan mentality, and, to do that, especially for you on a two-way level, it's impressive. It's very impressive. And like you mentioned earlier, to be conditioned. What are some things that you would recommend to or that you've learned from coaches that during your time while playing at pro or NCAA or even in high school that helped you become or get that defensive mentality?
One of the things is running on your own. You know what I mean? That will take care of the conditioning part. And now these kids have a lot of distractions now. Things are just so much cooler than when we were coming up. The games and all these things that they have are just so incredible that you're glued to like the TV or devices or whatever the case may be. But to tackle the conditioning part, just go out and run a mile. Just go run a mile a day. You know what I mean? That's going to take care of the condition. That's going to make you able to play at a two-way player, run the floor, and get back on D and pick up guys. On-ball defense, definitely knowing who you are as a player, knowing your quickness, knowing your ability, and knowing who you're guarding is so important. How close can I be to this guy? If I'm guarding you, I'm watching you, you're quick off the bounce, your first step is really explosive. Okay, I'm going to need to give this guy arm length. Slower guy, but you're still a scorer. Now I know my ability. I can climb up in you a little more. I can bother you a little more. So you have to know who you are personally, and you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with who you're guarding. It can't be personal. You got to know who they are. And that takes time with educating yourself on personnel.
Fair enough. I do want to continue on to your pro career. What was one of the toughest things for you to be able to transition to, language barriers, whether it was you couldn't read a proper sign, you couldn't get for instructions the right way, the coach didn't speak English. what was some of your toughest times while being a pro basketball player?
Probably all of those, man. Obviously, going over to England was easy. You know what I mean? You struggled with the food a little bit, but you know, the food barrier was the first thing to that you really you learn how to cook. You know what I mean? You gotta go in there and make your own food if you're not appreciative of what they have over there. Most grocery stores will have like an English aisle that they call the English aisle, where it's, you know, they'll have peanut butter and jelly and little name brands that you're used to. But I've been on teams where, I mean, my first Pro A France team, Brest, my coach spoke only French. You know what I mean? It was just all French. So, and he would do it in the huddles, you know, and he'll go in French, and it's like, holy cow, like, what are we running, bro? You know, and so he had a son that was a good player on our team, Jimmy Verove, and Jimmy would always be like, hey, Jay, he wants you to go here, go here. But when I see it on the board, I know where I'm going. But when he races the board and he starts talking, I'm like, Jimmy, what did your dad just say, man? Like, you know? But you look at it like, look, I'm going to play my butt off. I'm going to play hard, and that's all. That's going to – whatever he said, that's exactly what he must have meant, because, you know, you're going to go out there. But that's the two main things, I think: the food, the language barrier of going to grocery stores and not knowing what signs are really saying. Yeah. Traveling to certain locations and the GPS or reading the maps. That could get difficult. You got to learn that stuff pretty quick. You know, speaking to people just in public, or when they come up and speak to you and you really don't know how to respond, and being homesick, you know, because you're going over there. Austria, you got there in August or early September, and you didn't get back home until like April, May, because there was no Christmas break in Austria at the time. I think they have a break now, and so that's a long time to not see people that you love or care about.
Right, for sure.
But it helps you grow, and I think a lot of Canadians embrace that culture a lot more than our American counterparts, and from what I've witnessed.
For sure.
Because just Ontario, we're kind of a lot, you know, very diverse, multicultural, and we're able to kind of embrace a lot of different changes and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, you know, I'm glad, you know, one thing that I'm happy about with being Canadian is, like you said, we do embrace different cultures as well. So whether it's Jamaican, or whether it's African, or whether it's Greece, or whether it's Chinese or Asian or Japanese or whatever it might be, you know, for me, when I see it, you go downtown Toronto, you see different areas all the place. So it's kind of cool to be, you know, to get these stories from you know, someone like yourself who's been overseas and could legitimately say it's relatable. But I do want to ask you though, like, are you satisfied with your pro basketball career? Do you wish you could do one more year, or do you wish you'd go back and play it again? What would you do differently about it? Like, where's your mind at right now with it?
Man, I try not to have any regrets. The only regret I constantly talk about is that, like you touched on earlier, if you knew what you knew now back then, things would be so much different. There's things growing up as a Canadian and not having a lot of people around you that really knew basketball and what it took to really become good at this sport.
Right.
Like the kids have now, because we didn't have the social media where you could watch things, or we didn't have a lot of old heads that were just surrounding us. We had, like, Bobby Allen was one of my mentors. My brother Greg Walker was one of my mentors, and you watch, those guys are in your ear constantly. But besides those things, I wish instead of after practice, I was, you know, seeing if I could dunk or what kind of dunks we could do. Or I got the windmill, I got the reverse now. No, I wish I just took 30 minutes and just did ball handling drills, 2 ball, 1 ball. You know, I wish me and my buddy would just rebound for me, and I'll just shoot and make 100 before I leave practice. And things of that nature, like ball skills, ball development, player development stuff after practice. I wish I knew a lot of that stuff, because if I did, I think I would have been further along in terms of my pro career. I could have been somewhere else. I think I probably, you would have probably had a shot at the NBA if you did stuff, because you never know what that one summer did for me with Nash and the Canadian national team. Suppose that was, you add another 5 years of doing that.
Yeah.
Who knows what it would look like? You know what I mean?
Sure.
So now you tell the younger generation, man, work on your ball handling. Work on these little things while you can now. So
form shooting.
Yeah. All of that stuff, man. All of that stuff. Just work on your skills.
Yeah.
Instead of, just messing around, because it's going to come into play later.
For sure. And I do want to touch up a little bit on your, while you were playing for Canada. But the first question I got to ask you, though, was what was it like playing for your country and being able to represent your country? Because I don't think a lot of people really understand how great of a privilege that is. Like somebody like myself, I never had that opportunity to play that. Not a lot of my friends had that opportunity to play. So to be able to represent your country, what did it mean to you?
It was awesome, man. I mean, it meant a ton. It was one of those deals where, similar to the Hall of Fame, you never thought you would really be playing. Like I watched Bobby Allen play. I watched Sherman Hamilton he's from Malton too. I watched him get on the team. And you watch these guys that you're close with because you're from the small town of Malton. And you're like, if these guys could do it, and they were the best coming out, I can do it. And I'm one of the better guys coming out of Malton. I can do it too. But you never really think it's going to happen. And then when it did, and Jay gave me a shot, it was like, it's such a humbling experience, because so many people before you put on that Canada across the chest, and to have that across the chest and your name on the back of the jersey is really humbling. My first experience was the university team with when we went to Spain. We went to Palma de Mallorca, and we went to Mexico to play. And I got a chance to play with Danny Aponzo, who's one of my buddies.
I know Danny.
Yeah, and who else did I play with on that team? Flash. O'Neal Kamaka was on the team as well. Yeah, so to play with friends, Steve Mega was on the team, and I've known Steve for so many years from the Ontario teams and all that. So that was a good camaraderie. Just playing with friends and going across seas and representing Canada along with guys that you've grown up playing against and playing with on different programs. But then to get the national team, the men's side, was a whole new ball game, man. And it was like, wow, I was really at the time the only non-pro on the team. I was still in college, and everybody was a professional. And that was humbling, going down to the Pyramid, Long Beach, California, and playing in the NBA Summer League. We're playing against Lamar Odom and Baron Davis and all these guys. And you're on the court and you're playing. And, so it's the summer. That's when you're able to buy slots in the Summer League. You can't do that anymore. But like professional European teams were able to come and play in the NBA Summer League back then. They stopped all of that. It's just strictly NBA now. But those days were fun, man. I mean, being on the court with the best, a lot of people just can't say that. And I was able to get that opportunity, and I'm blessed and humbled by it.
Most definitely. I mean, kudos to you to be able to, first of all, thank you for representing our country. Second of all, kudos to you for being able to have that opportunity. Like I mentioned earlier, not many people do have that. So one last question I want to ask you regarding Canadian basketball, and I'm going to get a little bit into your coaching career. One question I want to ask you, though, is they had an article a while back ago about Steve Nash, just in general about how much he worked out and how crazy he was. They called him a lunatic at one point in time. Would you agree with that statement with him being a lunatic, or is he just a casual MVP?
No, he's definitely a workaholic, man. And and I think deep down he knew he had the IQ He had the skill, but I think he knew he was limited in certain areas. Maybe how fast he was, maybe how, the athleticism part. I think he knew, and this is just my opinion, I never heard this from him, that he had to outwork everybody in order to get on that level. Like, you have to put in that much work just to be under Kobe. You know what I mean? Like you have to work 20 times harder than certain guys just to be in the NBA. And that work ethic propelled him to be an MVP, man. There's no easy solution. And when you hear him, become MVP back to back, you go back to all the days that you saw him in the gym or after practice, he's shooting 1,000,000 shots. And then he goes out and he's running the streets of whatever city we're in. He's running the streets of that city. And then coming back and being the most vocal and the hardest worker in the second practice, and then doing it every day. And he just led by example. And it was pretty impressive, man.
That's awesome. So now transition to your coaching career. Obviously, like I said, you had a very, very successful personal basketball career. I want to get down to being a coach. You went to Eastern Michigan, you went to St. Bonaventure, and you went to New Mexico. Did you have any, how earlier you mentioned that the coach pulled the team together? Yeah, there's one player that scored 46 points on you guys, and they had a whole film session right at that nighttime. Now that you're in the other perspective, you're on the other side of the coach. Was there ever a moment that you were like, yeah, I finally got this person back? Or did you understand why your coach did that to you when you were in school?
To me, his example of me was a little extreme. Okay. I never came across any of the coaches I was under that singled out somebody to that extent. And I still talk to my coach to this day. So me and him joke around, and I could bring it up, and I'm able to go back at him now because I'm a grown man. So, like I said, he's at Oklahoma right now. They're going to make a tournament run, I believe. So, but you have to coach people. You know what I mean? You have to call things out for what they are. You have to teach. Film is one of the best teaching tools that we have, because a lot of times it doesn't lie. You know what I mean? So you have to continue to show film. And a lot of guys, they get mad during the moment, just like I did, just like you did. And you're on the bench and be like, all right, wait till tomorrow we'll watch film. Or we can go to my office after this game and watch film, and I'll show you. And you're able to bring guys back the next morning and be like, this is what I was talking about. This is what I was talking about. And then they're able to be like, yeah, okay, yeah. Some guys are defiant and be like, yo, but I did that because. No, but that's not what we want you to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? But film is a great teaching tool. And I think a lot of guys respect the film. And you're going to call out guys every once in a while. I just think from my personal experience, you want to be careful of that, because you never know how it can turn out. You know what I mean? And you never know how tough or fragile a player might be and where it can go from there. You know what I mean? There's 800 plus Division I transfers this year in the portal. So, you know what I mean? Or last season in the portal. And that could be a part of it, just how you're treating certain people. So it's a delicate balance.
Right. So we have a lot of kids in general that listen to this show, watch this show, and even for us right now, both of us coach AAU basketball programs. What is some advice that you would give a kid that's aspiring to become a Division I athlete?
Watch your favorite players. Watch a lot of basketball film. Don't say, Kyrie Irving is your favorite player, but you don't know anything about him. You don't know how he plays, his style of play, how he comes off ball screens, his decision making. Like, try to emulate your favorite players. You know what I mean? Or another thing is just respect the guys that came before. So watch a lot of the greats play, and they have a ton of highlights on. You have all this access right now on your fingertips just go and watch instead of, you know, picking up the joystick. I don't even it's not called a joystick anymore, right? It's, what is it called? But
we'll call it joysticks. I mean, I think everyone knows what they're talking about. The
yeah,
little controller.
controller, like, you know, plug in a game. You know what I mean? Pull up a highlight of Magic. You know, watch a quarter of Magic, watch a quarter of Bird, watch a quarter of the greats.
Yeah.
And then you have to put in the work. You
Yep.
have to go out and, like you said, do the form shooting. Be around like-minded people, guys that want to be basketball players, if you can. Sometimes it's not, you know, not everybody wants to be a hooper, but if you know, the guys that are doing other things that you don't want to do, or guys are getting in trouble, stay away from that stuff, man. If you want to be a hooper, you know, hang on to hoopers. That's what I did, man. I just hung out with, we had opportunities from where I'm from to just go down that wrong path. But we hung out with like-minded guys, man. Kingsley Hudson, Mike George. You know, Mike George was the one that really started me on getting into Division I.
Okay.
He's the one who put me on my first two squads.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I pay homage to the guys that helped get me to this point. You know what I mean? I didn't do this myself. But that's the advice I'll take from guys. And try to follow people. Try to reach out to guys that you like. You'll be surprised who responds back to you. You know what I mean? Reach out to coaches. Reach out to D1 coaches. You'll never know who responds to you.
For sure. I mean, that's exactly how I got you on the show as well. I just reach out to you and say, hey, come on would like to come on the show, and here we are right now. So you're 100% right about that. You're 100% right. Last couple questions I want to ask you about being a university coach and that experience in general before we get to some quick hitters and some the outro. But the question I want to ask you is, what did you learn from all three coaches, you know, while you were assisting them?
Man, Rob Murphy. So he came from Syracuse. So he was at Syracuse for 6 years under Boeheim. Okay. You know, so I definitely learned how to run the 2-3 zone, you know, and it's carried to this day. If I, you know, run a team in the near future, I can pull out all of those practices that I learned from him and how to actually, it's not just, there's ways to run it. There's ways to break down the two top positions. There's ways to break down the center. There's ways to break down the wings. There's practices and drills to emulate those positions that not everyone that I've seen knows what to really do to emulate that Syracuse zone.
Right.
And I've learned that from him. I've learned from Murph to really how to conduct himself, you know, how to conduct himself on a professional manner, you know, how to hold his employees accountable, you know, and he was diligent in film work. You know, we would watch the game after the game, you know what I mean? Those were rough times, but you had to put in the work, you know, and he hasn't had the success that he would have loved to have at Eastern Michigan, but he was there for a decade. He did 10 years there. That's a long time for a coach to be at a place, man. Especially if you haven't brought a championship to a university. That I think speaks volumes to who he is as a person. And like we touched on Schmidt at St. Bonaventure. You know, the things that he was able to do, you know, on and off the court, how he conducts himself, you know, how he runs a practice. He has a formula. He's been doing it for a long time. And he's from the Skip Prosser branch. You know, Skip Prosser was a legendary coach. He worked for him at 2 different schools, you know, last being Xavier, you know, and that was his role model. That was his mentor. So I have Boeheim branch in me. I have Skip Prosser branch in me. And those are valuable branches and tutelages to have, man. And, you know, I try not to take that for granted because those are 2 of the top, considered some of the top coaches to ever do it. You know, the way Schmidt demanded respect and demanded you to work outside of the game. You know what I mean? So he was, we can't spend all day on these plays. You got to get with assistant coaches, and they got to teach you these sets. You got to bring it home, and you got to study these sets. This is school.
Right.
This is education. On top of your homework that you have in the classroom, this is a class too. And if you want to play, you have to know these sets. You have to know our philosophies. You have to know what we demand. Yep. He was also big on getting players better. You know what I mean? So he required his assistant coaches to have 3 to 4 guys that we called our own. And we had to have a workout schedule for them, workout schedule 2 to 3 times a week. And each guy had their own little schedule based on their academic requirements. And we fit them in, and we worked for 45 minutes, an hour, 30 minutes, depending on the slot time. And we did this weekly, man. We did this weekly because he was about getting players have to get better. They have to get better. They have to get better. They got to be shooting. They got to be handling. They got to be coming off ball screen. They got to work on the passing, IQ, skills. He was big on all that stuff. And then just how he ran a practice. And it was just time, and time is money. Time is money. He's always looking at the clock. All right, next thing. Boom. Next thing. Okay, buzzer's going off. He's on the managers. Start the clock. You know what I mean? Like, this time is money. We got to get this all in. And the way he used to run it, man, was really ideal. Was
perfection.
Really, yeah, man. He was really, really good at it, man. With New Mexico, Paul was a young coach, and he was learning as he was coaching. You know what I mean? He was learning as he was coaching. He got a really good opportunity with the Lobos, but he was under Steve Alford, who's another really good coach. You know what I mean? He was an awesome player at Indiana. He had an NBA career, went on to coach UCLA. Now he's at Nevada. Paul was under him. So that's another, tutelage of a really good head coach under the branch.
Right.
But Paul was learning on the fly, just like we were. So he wasn't as seasoned as Schmidt. Schmidt was like 25 years head coach, or you know what I mean? Murph was 10-year head coach.
He was young. He was young.
I mean, he was young, but I mean, he did he valued the coaches or the players, and he valued the players' opinions. And he was able, his door was always open for the players to come in and talk. A lot of players don't like, they avoid that hallway.
Right.
And they avoid that hallway. And he always had an open door for the players to come in.
So he's a players coach, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. We're gonna get to some quick hitters right now to finish off the show. First one I'm gonna ask you is, if you had your own movie and you wanted somebody to star in your own movie, who would it be? Or story. Sorry. So let me reiterate. You had your own movie about your life. Who would you want the star to be?
Who would I want the star to be?
Like, what I mean by that is what actor would I want to? Yeah.
I don't know his name. The kid in Snowfall.
Snowfall. I don't think I saw that movie.
No. I'm blocking his name. Is it Snowfall? No, it's Snowfall. You got to look it up. It's not a movie. It's a show.
The show?
It's a show.
All right. I'll get back. I'll find that one, and then if I can find it, I'll post it on the Instagram afterwards. I'll let you know.
His name.
If you could be a head coach at any school Division I, which one would it be?
Probably Michigan.
Okay.
I idolized the school, the M. Growing up, I had all the posters on my wall. My son wants to go there. It's one of those. He's from Michigan. The kids are from Michigan, so it's one of those deals where I think that would be a school if there was one.
Okay. Top 5 movies of all time for you.
Oh, Gladiator.
Can't go wrong with that.
Usual Suspect.
Okay. We thinking different right now. Okay.
Yeah, Usual Suspect. I like Life. The comedy with Eddie Murphy and
Not sure if I saw
Martin
that one.
Lawrence.
I have to go watch that one. I go back and watch that one.
Life is up there. Probably Training Day.
Woo! You cannot go wrong with Training Day.
Training Day. Ah, man. I'd have to throw in the Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. Heat. I'd have to throw in Heat.
Can't go wrong with that either. Can't go wrong with that either. Last question we ask all of our guests is, who is someone that you'd like to see on our show? But here's the kicker, though. You got to help us get him.
Who would it be? I saw Mike George is already on here.
Mike George is on here. Yeah. We've had Elvis Dennis on here as well. We've had
Bobby Allen.
Funny enough, that's the second person. That's the second person that recommended him. Okay.
Bobby Allen. I could get it done.
Say no more. Say no more. We appreciate that. We appreciate that.
That's the big homie.
Where can people find you on social media?
Man, I'm all over. Instagram. I don't even know my tag. I'm old, man. I think it's like JRob 24 or something like that. JRob 24.
Okay.
On Twitter, I'm JRobin123. JRobin123.
JRobin123.
Yeah, and JRob24, I think, on Instagram. You know, I post a lot of my kids now and a lot of the accomplishments of my past players and the things they're doing professionally. But I'm a big family guy, so you know, you're gonna see my daughter's soccer highlights and my son's ball highlights and all that stuff. So
can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that. Can't go wrong with that. Hey, Jerome, man, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. It was a very insightful story. You had a lot of good things to talk about. I learned a lot about you personally that I didn't even know, and it was just a very good conversation. An honor to have you on our show, and we definitely appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today.
Definitely, me. Honored that you guys even, you know, took the time to reach out to me and hear my story, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Stay safe. You know, hopefully everybody in the family stays safe as well, and we wish you guys nothing but the best.
Same to you, brother. Take care.
Take care.